Ever daydreamed about just hopping on a plane with nothing but your passport and a thirst for adventure? Today's deep dive is going to spark some serious wanderlust as we explore how far a Guyana passport can take you. Get ready for some surprises.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not just about tropical getaways. We're talking access to global powerhouses.
It's true. While many might overlook Guyana when considering, passport strength, the reality is it offers a pretty unique blend of access, reflecting a fascinating interplay of history, economics, and global relationships.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The source says Guyana's passport currently sits at 59th globally.
Yeah.
That puts them in the medium mobility range.
Right.
Well, for those unfamiliar, passport rankings aren't just about bragging rights.
Right.
They can actually impact everything from visa applications to how you're perceived at border control.
Exactly. A lower ranking can often mean lengthier visa processes, higher fees, and even, unfortunately, a higher chance of facing additional scrutiny during travel. It's a stark reminder that global mobility, it's not a level playing field.
So where can you travel freely with a Guyana passport? The source lists 88 destinations.
Wow.
Of course, we see the usual suspect.
Absolutely.
Caribbean neighbors, a few South American countries, but then things get interesting. Buckle up, because we're talking visa-free access to Singapore, a global economic powerhouse, and you can just stroll right in with a Guyana passport.
That's a fantastic illustration of how historical ties and evolving relationships between nations are reflected in travel access. Guyana's colonial history with the UK likely plays a role here, as Singapore was also part of the British Empire.
It's like a historical echo influencing modern-day travel, which I find utterly fascinating. And speaking of echoes, Ireland also pops up on that visa-free list. Imagine wandering through Dublin's historic streets, no visa hassle whatsoever.
It highlights how a nation's past can have a very real impact on its present-day standing in the world. These historical connections can create a foundation for future alliances and agreements, including those related to travel.
It makes you wonder what other historical connections are quietly shaping the world we live in. But back to the passport. The source also lists Russia as visa-free. That's a little unexpected, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And South Korea, a technological powerhouse, also grants easy access to Guyana passport holders.
This is where analyzing a passport ranking goes beyond just listing countries. The inclusion of Russia and South Korea hints at potential geopolitical and economic considerations that are fascinating to unpack.
It's like a geopolitical game of chess, and a passport is your pawn on the board. But hold on, before we plan our world tour, the source reminds us that the EU is a no-go without a visa. The US and Australia are also off the table for visa-free travel with a Guyana passport.
And this is where we see the influence of a country's economic and political standing on visa requirements. The EU, US, and Australia often have stricter policies for nations with developing economies, regardless of historical ties.
Which brings us to a crucial point. Guyana's recent emergence as an oil-producing nation. Could this newfound wealth influence future visa agreements?
It's definitely a factor to watch. This economic upswing has the potential to reshape Guyana's global image and influence, including how it negotiates travel agreements with other nations.
It's almost as if discovering oil is like holding a winning lottery ticket. Suddenly everyone wants to be your friend, right?
In a way, yes. Economic prosperity often translates to greater global influence, and that includes how a country's citizens are treated in terms of travel access. We've seen this pattern before with other nations experiencing rapid economic growth.
So while Guyana's passport currently faces certain limitations, this new chapter in their economic story could very well change the game. But let's not forget about Guyana itself. The source mentions its capital, Georgetown, is a bustling city with a rich history and culture. And then there's Kaieteur National Park, home to the breathtaking Kaieteur Falls, one of the most powerful waterfalls in the world.
And this is where connecting passport strength to a nation's tourism goals becomes fascinating. The more accessible a country is, the greater potential for tourism growth. Guyana seems to be capitalizing on this, particularly with their focus on ecotourism.
Which makes perfect sense. Showcase those natural wonders while promoting responsible travel. But before we get too swept away by images of cascading waterfalls and lush rainforests, let's delve a little deeper into how this passport ranking is actually determined.
It's a multifaceted calculation that goes beyond simply counting visa-free destinations.
Okay, so walk us through it. What factors are considered?
Well, the ranking takes into account not just the number of countries a Guyana passport holder can enter without a visa, but also those requiring a visa on arrival and destinations accessible with an electronic travel authorization, or ETA.
So it's about painting a complete picture of travel freedom, weighing those completely hassle-free entries against destinations with varying degrees of pre-approval.
Exactly. And in Guyana's case, beyond those 56 visa-free countries, they have 30 destinations offering visa on arrival, meaning you basically get your visa stamped right there when you land.
Talk about convenient. That sounds like a great option for those who like a bit of spontaneity in their travel plans.
Yeah.
Any destinations on that visa on arrival list that caught your eye?
A few standouts for sure. We're talking Qatar with its modern marvels, the Seychelles with its pristine beaches, even Zambia, offering a chance to explore the African continent. It's a testament to how a Guyana passport can be your ticket to a diverse range of experiences.
From bustling cities to tropical paradises and everything in between, it seems like there's something for every type of traveler. Now, we can't forget about those ETA destinations. Those are all the rage these days, aren't they?
They've definitely become increasingly popular. It's a way for countries to manage the flow of travelers while offering a more streamlined process for those who qualify.
And for Guyana passport holders, two key countries pop up on that ETA list: South Korea and Kenya. It's that fascinating blend, again, a global economic force alongside a nation renowned for its breathtaking natural wonders.
It really speaks to the diverse range of experiences accessible with a Guyana passport. You could be exploring cutting-edge technology in Seoul one minute and then find yourself on safari witnessing the majesty of the Masai Mara the next.
Okay, I'm officially adding travel the world with a Guyana passport to my bucket list. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. As much as we'd love to believe in a world without borders, the reality is there are still restrictions, even with a well-ranked passport like Guyana's.
That's an important point to remember. While 88 destinations might seem like a lot, there are still 141 countries where a traditional visa is required for Guyana passport holders.
All right, time for the reality check. Where are those roadblocks, so to speak?
The big ones are familiar names for many passport holders from developing nations: the entire European Union, the United States, Canada, and Australia. These regions often have stricter visa policies for countries with specific economic indicators or perceived security concerns.
It's a stark reminder that passport privilege is a very real phenomenon and that navigating the world with certain passports can be significantly more challenging.
Absolutely. It underscores the complexities of global mobility and how factors like economics, political relationships, and even historical circumstances can create barriers for some while offering greater freedom to others.
It definitely prompts reflection on those underlying systems that shape our world and influence something as fundamental as our ability to travel. But shifting gears for a moment, let's dive deeper into Guyana itself. The source mentions a fascinating blend of cultural influences, a fusion of African, Indian, and British traditions.
It's a true melting pot, and that rich cultural heritage is reflected in everything from their vibrant music and flavorful cuisine to their diverse religious practices.
Speaking of cultural fusion, the source also highlights Guyana's culinary scene, particularly their pepper pot, a stew that combines indigenous ingredients with those brought over during colonial times. It's a delicious example of how history manifests in everyday life.
Absolutely. And let's not forget their music. From reggae and calypso to chutney and folk songs, Guyana's musical landscape is as diverse as its people, reflecting their history and their unique blend of cultures.
It sounds like a feast for the senses. Now, beyond its cultural tapestry, this source paints a picture of Guyana's economic landscape. Historically, they've been known for exporting natural resources like timber, sugar, and even gold.
They've been dubbed the land of many waters and the green state, which speaks to their abundant natural resources and the potential for ecotourism. But the term sugar bowl, historically used to describe Guyana, highlights their reliance on this single crop for economic stability.
Sugar bowl is such a vivid image, but it also hints at potential vulnerabilities. So with the discovery of oil, how is this new economic chapter unfolding?
It's a fascinating time for Guyana. These offshore oil discoveries are poised to be a game changer, potentially transforming their economic future and their position on the global stage.
Talk about a plot twist. From sugar bowl to a potential oil powerhouse. It makes you wonder how this shift will impact Guyana's global standing beyond just, those passport possibilities.
It's a pivotal moment for them, really. This influx of oil revenue has the potential to attract foreign investment, boost economic growth, and even increase their influence in international affairs. We might even see a shift in how other nations perceive and interact with Guyana on a global scale.
It really highlights how seemingly static things like passport rankings are actually fluid and subject to change based on these larger economic and geopolitical forces at play.
Precisely. Guyana's story is a fantastic example of the dynamic nature of global power dynamics. What we're witnessing is a case study in how a nation's fortunes can shift, and with those shifts come new opportunities and challenges.
It's a good reminder that the world is in constant flux, and being open to those unexpected turns of events is all part of the journey. But before we wrap up our deep dive, I wanted to circle back to one last detail that caught my eye: the currency exchange rate. The force mentions 209 Guyanese dollars to $1 US.
Ah, yes. The practicalities of navigating a new currency, an essential element of travel.
Exactly. Can you imagine trying to do that mental math while browsing those bustling markets we talked about earlier? It's a good reminder that even with a powerful passport, embracing those sometimes quirky, always interesting aspects of a new culture is all part of the adventure.
It's those little details that often create the most lasting memories. It's about being open to experiencing a different way of life, even down to how they handle their money.
So as we conclude our deep dive into the world of the Guyana passport, what's the key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with today?
I think the most important thing to remember is that a passport is more than just a travel document. It's a symbol of history, economic realities, and a nation's ever-evolving place in the world. Guyana's story perfectly illustrates this point, showcasing how interconnected these factors truly are.
Beautifully put. It's a reminder to look beyond the stamps and visas and recognize the intricate forces shaping our world and the potential for change.
Indeed. Approaching the world with a sense of curiosity, empathy, and a thirst for knowledge is always the best compass.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.